Hey everyone, I am Kimbra and this is Kellie. And today on Kellie and Kimbra, we are going to talk about cults, everybody's favorite subject.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I don't remember how we got on this topic and you were like, that's a great topic for the podcast. But yeah, cults, it's an interesting thing because the one that as a young adult that I always remember was the what is it called? The Waco, the David Koresh, right?
Yeah.
That was the first one that I was really ever aware of.
Yeah.
And that was just I remember watching it on TV with like the government coming in and trying to, arrest in Texas and the big building that.
Well, they killed a lot of people. There was a lot of controversy just about how it was handled.
Yes.
And
I was reading
what they were
about that.
doing.
Yeah, I was reading about that. And they were just saying how, because their thing was that was should have religious freedom. But the government was saying that there was some alleged sex trafficking going on. So that was one thing, but not sex trafficking, but David Koresh was having sex with a lot of the young girls that were in this cult.
Maybe pedophilia.
Yeah, maybe. And then, but also he was stockpiling guns, I believe. I think he was had a lot of guns. As far as I have to look that up, but I think that's true. But anyway, so I was reading about it. That was rather controversial. It took place for those that don't remember, it was in the early 90s. And it was controversial because federal government, people were saying they didn't handle it very well.
Right.
It's just,
they didn't handle it properly at all. It was not right. And a lot of people died. So if you're trying to save people from a cult and you end up killing them, that's not, I would say, a proper way to handle it. The one I remember, the first one that I remember hearing of, I think it was Jim Jones, the ones that drank all the Kool-Aid and
well, that's where I was looking at cults, and I don't remember the Jim Jones thing. I of course read about it in history and all that, but that's where I didn't realize that's where they drank the Kool-Aid. You know how people always say that now?
Yeah.
They drank the Kool-Aid, and it's from that,
Yep.
And
that was frightening because he actually, to have that kind of power over people to convince them that they should kill themselves, whatever, for a greater afterlife or whatever it is that he told them.
That's the interesting thing about cults. It's like there's an extreme ideology usually, right? And it's usually motivated by money, sex, and or power, right? There's always one person that's kind of the cult leader.
Yep.
And the people that gravitate towards the cults, that's the interesting thing. It's like they've usually had some kind of a bad upbringing,
they're damaged in some way. There's
there's been a loss,
fragility, and a weakness in wanting to belong, wanting someone to understand them or take care of them.
That's why a lot of these cult leaders, they pray, like the Manson family, he preyed on, women that run away from home, or, there weren't.
Well, like that Keith Raniere, Nexium.
Yeah. I was going to talk about that.
Common, newer.
That's a fairly new 1998.
Yeah. And I was watching a video on YouTube with India Oxenberg, Catherine Oxenberg's daughter.
I remember her.
And Catherine Oxenberg heroically really fought to get her daughter out of there. And India she was being honest about the process. And she said, he preyed on people and he morphed himself into what they wanted him to be, what interested them. She said he was different with each of these women.
You mean this Keith Raniere?
Yeah. And so with her, he basically was seducing them, mentally seducing them. And so with her, she liked that he was light and fun, and he made her feel like a friend and understood and trusted. And little by little, it just kept going further. And she thought there was this sisterhood with these other women. And also, I think a lot of them didn't know that they were sleeping with him.
Yeah, it was under the guise of self-improvement, executive success
Yeah.
programs.
He would try. Yeah, that's how it started.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would try to make them feel special, because that's another way that these men do this. They make you feel special, like you're picked out and you're singled out, when he's doing it with all of them.
He's having sex with all of them.
Yeah. I think we know some men like that.
We know that guys like that are not even cult leaders.
Yeah. But yeah, you mentioned, it starts out with self-help, a lot of it. So there's another group called the Landmark Forum, and they've been accused of being a cult. And I've talked to some people that have done their program. Have you ever heard of it? It's in LA.
Actually, I went to a weekend once, and I really liked it because a lot of my friends had gone. And yeah, I hadn't really heard that about that, but I could see where definitely people would think
it's similar to Scientology. It's like Dianetics. A lot of it makes sense. And when you go at first, it's a self-help program, and you're bettering yourself, wanting to become better. And then you get sucked in little by little by little. And with the Landmark Forum, I don't think it's sinister. I just think it's money making scam, because you're required to recruit, some people.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So I think it's more of a scam than them being sinister in any way.
Well, the only reason I even considered it, because there was like a few people. I never went with the whole weekend or week. I only did the 1-day course. It was like 2 hours or something. It was free. But the only reason why I even considered it was because a few of my friends had done it, and they said really good things about it. And then I looked at the people that had done it, and I really thought they were very together, mentally. So I thought about doing it, but I never did it, because at the time it seemed like a lot of money,
Well, like you say, you bring that the people that were doing it had their lives together.
Seemed like.
So as I've mentioned before, and I used to do self-help workshops called Find Your Excellence at the colleges in Los Angeles. And it was a very basic self-analysis course. It was all these activities to examine how you do things and what you're looking for in life, and just a lot of fun activities. And I was always disappointed, because I was really trying to reach out to people who were troubled, like deeply troubled and struggling in life, and not sure which direction to go, and kind of lost. And the people that I would get in this class would be, PhDs and very successful, wealthy people. And I could tell sometimes they were like, because these are a lot of these exercises were kind of elementary. And I could tell some of them would be a little bit disappointed. And I remember this one girl, she sat in the front row and she scowled the whole time. And at the end, they fill out a survey, and I can't remember what she said, but I think she said she was too loud. Well, you're right in the front row. It's a big room. She could have moved if I was too loud. And I can't remember the other thing.
That's not like it was a rock guitarist. You weren't like,
Yeah. Well, she was like right in front of me. Right. And so I looked her up. I did a little bit of reading. I'm like, who is this woman? Like, why is she saying this? Because if somebody's too loud, you just get up and move. And you move to a different place. And we took a break even. She could have moved to a different seat then. She was part of the Landmark Forum. She was scoping me out. And trying to figure out what the competition was doing. I don't consider myself competition with the forum. I have another friend that went to it, and he saw my introduction in the book, and it was very open and honest. And I'm not claiming to be an expert on self-help or anything like that. And he's like, "Oh, you should establish yourself as an expert." Or I can't remember the word he used. And that's what these people do. They're not experts. They're not, they've come up with this program that makes sense for people that are lost or whatever. And any smart person could come up with one of these programs. Anybody who's done some emotional work and analyzed things and how things work. And then they prey on these people's weakness, or these people looking for. I remember when I was coaching, so I was doing phone call coaching too. I'd always discourage people from doing it live, because I didn't want to drive anywhere to do it. So I had a couple clients, and I remember this one girl, I'm doing phone coaching, and the conclusion that I came to, I would give her exercises to do, activities through the week, and say, by next week, have this done when we talk next. She wouldn't do them. And I remember I got the sense she was an actor. She wanted to be a famous actor. And I got the sense that really what she was looking for was somebody to do the work for her. She wants somebody to get her audition, somebody to tell her exactly who to talk to, how to get it. And I think she's the one that did me in. I was like, I still have my class and I still like to do it. I still offer it, and the book's out there. And I think it is helpful. I think it's helpful to anybody who would look at the activities. They're fun. They're just fun activities. And it's just, I've composed, my theory and thoughts on things. And so anybody would benefit from it. But I feel like the super high type A personalities are going to feel disappointed because it doesn't tell you how to get rich in 5 days. And I also feel like we kind of tormented, lost people are not willing to do the work. So I got really sour on the self-help industry and started realizing it does become cult-like. And I was not going to do that. I was not going to lie to people and place them under my spell, because I did very well with that. I did very well with the bartending classes, but I was sincere and people knew that. The self-help industry, I couldn't play that game. I couldn't tell people what they wanted to hear. So anyway, with that said, I think, yes, cults are about self-help. They're about not self-help. They're about people who want someone else to help them do the work. And again, it's like I said in our other video, people who are intellectually lazy. They don't want to do the emotional work. They're emotionally lazy. I had a boyfriend like that. He was emotionally lazy. I was going to say a bad joke and I won't say it about men. So never mind. Well,
we'll let that one go.
Anyway, yeah, I feel like in our society and our culture, that's part of the superficiality of it. Everything's on the surface. And if you crack the code how to make money by, a lot of sales is manipulation. Sure. So if you crack the code how to do that, you don't have to do your own work intellectually or emotionally or spiritually. And I feel like we've just become very lazy in those ways. Instead, we're always looking for the scam way to get by, the easy way.
Well, definitely. Yeah. But I don't know if we become more, because when you think about in history, a lot of people, like we were saying, go to church and stuff. I think in some ways back in the day, we were even more did not think, about stuff.
Possibly. Yeah. I mean, I didn't live in that time, so I don't know.
I didn't either, but I'm just guessing.
What, yeah. Well, I definitely would think, but see, okay. So like take the Bible or the Quran or there were intellectual scholars back then. The Bible is a great book of a lot of, lessons, moral lessons and principles. And people get confused because they think the Bible's literal, that all of those stories are literal. And most of them are parables. They're stories, they're lessons meant to teach people to be better, because people they were intellectually lazy. So there were scholars, through the centuries that we've had scholars that we look to.
And also people were just always questioning, they didn't know. And this was a way to like explain things to people.
Well, sometimes those people were killed too, because they thought differently. You would get killed for things. So I guess we have advanced, progressed in that way, that you don't get like killed or
that we know of.
Really. Yeah. But yeah, the cult mentality preys upon people who are, and maybe not, maybe emotionally or intellectually lazy is not a good word for it, because they are seeking out, they are looking for help. There was another one, I went to see him in some hotel in Beverly Hills, James Arthur Ray. Oh, loaded with charisma. I loved what he had to say. He had all these little catchphrases and it was fun. It was like a really fun evening and I liked him. Well, a couple years later, I read he had this spiritual retreat, I think in Arizona, and two or three people died. They were in this tent, like a sauna, and it got too hot. But he was trying to get people to, it's like Tony Robbins telling people to walk over the hot coals.
Sure.
And he's full of crap too. I mean, he's another one. He's right to a point, but when they take it so far, like Tony Robbins, he says he charges people now for his seminars because you're more committed if you pay for it. Well, that's true, because he doesn't want to waste his time on people that aren't really committed. But really, why doesn't he just offer his programs for free now? He's made all his money. And now why is he selling like vitamins or something? That's just, a scammer. Like he's a scammer, and he had some truth to what they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they start getting carried away. Joel Osteen claims to be a preacher. He's not. He's a motivational speaker, and I love him. I love to listen to his speaking. I love some of those televangelists. I listen to them, and I'm like, they're motivational. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with going to church and hearing your preacher give you moral lessons. But you have to walk away and think on your own terms and own it in your own life.
I went through a phase in my early 20s where I was constantly reading self-help books, because I was going through stuff, right? And gosh, for a couple of years, and it did really help me. Yeah. But I always had because I'd always get one or two really good grains of truth or wisdom. Yeah, and I'd always remember clarity, exactly. And but I was always pretty kind of level-headed. So I remember if it would get to the next thing where, people like join the thing. And then I would be like, oh, I don't know. I'm not much because I'm really not. It's like, because I'm always like sitting, I always get scared when I see a bunch of people like glob on so enthusiastically without like really like thinking about it, and you get caught up in the moment, when you go to these things, right? It's like, come on, sign up now. And then, just people get caught up in the thing. Yeah. But I remember always just thinking, oh no, and you don't want to be not the joiner person. You're always that person that's like, why aren't you joining? But I would always like sit back and just like think about it, and usually I wouldn't join.
Well, because, peer pressure also
That's true.
Is another thing, wanting to be part of the tribe. And I think you and I both walked to our own beat. Both of us have never succumbed to the superficial trappings, and just done things from our heart and, what made sense. So yeah, I feel like we've both evaded those kinds of things. So I've read a lot of self-help books, and I used to watch Oprah and love her. And I get inspired by people like Brene Brown and Russell Brand. And I love Russell Brand. I love philosophy. I love it. But I feel like there's just such a laziness. And I don't know if, our makeup is different. And some people just maybe are not able, they don't have the capacity to understand things on a deeper level. On their own without help. So maybe that's why they end up being susceptible.
A friend of mine pointed out something to me too about certain religious groups or organizations. It's a feeling of community, when you feel like you've got somebody helping you. Yeah.
It's that tribal thing. We're naturally tribal. Yeah. But so I want to talk about one more thing. And we've talked about this. So Joe Lara, who played Tarzan, and I dated him years ago. And he was very sweet and very nice, but there was just something strange, something weird about him, but very nice guy, very gorgeous and nice and always really sweet. And then we were talking about famous people we met, and I looked him up, and he married this televangelist woman. I had to look her name up. Gwen Shamblin. She was like a minister, and she had a huge following, and her program was called Way Down, WEIGH, down, Way Down. Okay. And it was based on spiritual dieting. Basically, she would tell people, if you're hungry, fill yourself with God. Okay. Which I can see why people, struggling with their weight and like, let me think about God. Let me pray instead of eat, that makes sense. But again, she took it so far. She was totally had to be anorexic. She was so skinny and gaunt and I saw looked pictures. Sick. And then Joe ended up marrying her, and I don't like to criticize people for the way they look. I feel like, look however you want. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. But she was made up. She claimed to be a Christian. Christians don't believe in that. They don't believe in being false. Makeup. They don't even believe in makeup. And her hair was as big as her body. And it was almost like she was trying, kind of the Tammy Faye Baker thing, trying to compensate for something missing. Right. And unfortunately, Joe was their pilot, and used to fly them around places. They were, she was very, very, very rich from her evangelist business
Stuff.
and they were killed 3 months ago in the plane. They had some other church members with them on the plane, and
so
her
sad.
and him, and they, died in this plane. So I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but I do believe in speaking the truth. And I just always found it odd that this guy ended up with this woman. Who knows what he was searching for, what she filled in him, maybe having been, because I do feel like he didn't like to be treated, he was a piece of meat. He was a Tarzan. Talk about being exploited for your looks. And maybe he had run from that. Maybe he was running from that his whole life and looking for something deeper and more spiritual. And so you can also go too far with that stuff too. You can take it too far. And I think that's how people end up, in a cult, because they're running from, they're looking for something deeper, more spiritual. But that can be done personally, on a personal basis. Just they say, prayer is when you're talking to God, and meditation is when you're listening.
Right.
So
And it's maybe not, it's all a process, because sometimes when you're younger, you kind of have to like go through that, because like you said, it's the
find your way
and the peer pressure and all that. And then as you get a little bit more confident in what you believe in, and sure of yourself, then you can start like breaking away and thinking on your own, questioning things,
I think that's one thing, college, I feel like is not necessarily, has become a place where I think there's a lot of indoctrination, but I wish we would get back to more philosophy, or just let college be a place to learn your skill and your craft. I also
or both, maybe
thought of
both.
that. Well, it would be better if there was a place for everyone, not just people that went to college, to if as a culture, as a society, we started nurturing philosophical conversation.
Sure.
And brought it more into our lives and our homes. Even, religious people, they go to church on Sunday, a lot of them, and then that they don't think about it. They don't talk about what happened what was the sermon about. Ask your kids, what did you think about that? What do you think that means? And have those kinds of conversations where it actually integrates into your life, instead of a bumper sticker that says, I love Jesus. And that's what religion is to you.
Right.
Really understanding what Jesus stood for.
Right. And my dad was very much like that. He'd always want to talk about things. I think I've told you that before. He's always like, we got to talk about what we talked about today. When you grow up with a parent like that, sometimes you're always like, oh God, do we have to, but the opposite is true too. People that grew up with parents that don't want to talk about anything, then they're always like, I want to talk.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times we do opposite of what we
grew up with.
Yeah. No, but I think I'm thankful to my father for that, actually, though, because he was kind of a rebel, and he'd always like say, I'll argue with any, about the Bible, because he always considered himself very well read about the Bible and a lot of books, and he'd always say, I'll debate anyone. He loved that.
Healthy, though. I think that's a healthy. I think we all should be able to do that. We all should be knowledge is.
Right.
I think knowledge is life. Like it's what makes you feel alive. A lot of people, too. I've learned a couple lessons in my life, and, I'm by no means saying I'm not superficial. I have been so superficial throughout my life, but I've become less and less. And I think I was never as superficial as most people, or I would have taken a different path in life. But I remember one lesson I learned is, I remember I got these aqua blue contacts, and I put him in, and I really thought, I was so excited to get him, and I just thought, oh my gosh, this is so exciting.
But your eyes are already so blue. They were going to make them more blue.
So I put him in, and they were like this weird aqua blue.
You look like an alien.
I'll never forget the disappointing feeling, because I looked at myself and I'm like, I'm the same. And I don't know what I thought. I was going to look like a princess or something. I thought I was going to look like I don't know what I thought, but I was like really excited and thought, oh, this is it. And it was just a lesson to me that you are who you are, that's not important, like whatever this weird blue eye color. And I just remember the feeling of disappointment. And then there's been, a couple other times where I really wanted something, and I saved my money and I bought it. And these were all when I was younger. And then the feeling was like, oh, okay, now I have it. oh, well, then what? So,
Yeah, I know. It never,
your 20s is a time to learn and experiment and figure things out. And I do think we should give younger people more of a cushion to do that, and more help in doing that. So I don't know how, I don't know what the process would be, but I do feel like we should nurture that kind of exploration instead of expecting people just to graduate high school. You either go to college, maybe trade school or whatever, get your job, and then start getting on that hamster wheel of work, 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 get your family, have your family, raise your kids, and not really stop and examine life.
Yeah, that's why one thing I did do, I traveled a lot in my early 20s, through for school, but also this USO stuff I was doing later on after school. Yeah, and but I remember at a young age thinking, I need to see the world now because who knows what's going to happen. I may get married and do all this stuff, so it's good to have those early 20s, even late teens if you can, to explore. So
I think so.
I definitely think that's
so you don't end up in a cult.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if that really has anything to do with it, but
I know, right? But cults are bad. No, but then again, the whole other thing is, it's like, what is a cult? That's a whole other topic unto itself, because some people think certain religions are cults, but what determines that?
Well, like Scientology. I would say a cult is any organization that becomes more important than your life.
Agreed.
It becomes damaging to you.
Right. And when I was
you lose yourself in it.
Yeah, when I was looking it up, it said to you, if it makes you give up relationships with your friends or family, or persuades you to do that, change your lifestyle. If it hinders your lifestyle, if it makes you change it radically, that's definitely a sign of a possible cult.
Yeah.
So
just my advice to people would be, think things through. Don't let someone else do the thinking for you. Read books, because that's really, that's using your mind. It's an exercise for your mind. It's, like you go to the gym and, work out for your muscles, your brain's a muscle.
Also,
so read.
I don't know if this is good advice, but I was always pretty good about my gut feeling. Like I'd always get this feeling in my gut, like this does not feel right. This guy's weird, but a lot of people have problems with that. Cause I remember telling a close friend of mine, follow your gut. She's like, but I don't really get a thing in my gut. And I'm like, really?
Not everybody has that. Yeah.
Really?
Or it gets damaged in childhood or something. It gets directed or whatever, tainted.
That's interesting. Yeah. Because I do have a strong gut feeling. Like I was always a really good judge of character, even as a kid. Like I remember I would, I get a feeling about someone and then I would just kind of like hide behind my parents because I knew,
oh, wow.
I could sense this person is weird or not good,
Yeah.
And so, as an adult,
I don't have the danger signal.
Really?
I trust everyone. I always think everyone's good. I never think anyone would harm. And even at this age, I'm always surprised when somebody turns out to be, whatever, a scammer or a backstabber or something. I'm always so devastated because I'm like, I trusted him so much, or her. And I don't have that sensor. Not very well, not very good. I trust people.
I trust people too. And I have been disappointed a couple times, but mostly it's been worked well for me. I've been burned one or two times. One time or two times I knew I was going to get burned and I still did it. But there's been times when, with women friends that I was wrong, like I didn't really follow. Maybe I just didn't want to follow my gut and I just did it because I thought, I'm going to give him a chance. But anyway, if you can develop that feeling, that sense, I don't know how to advise someone to do it, but
because you don't want to not trust people. But you want to be, you want to be cautious. Cautious, about who you let in your life and take it slowly. If somebody comes in your life real fast and they're going to help you with this and help you with that and do this and do that for you, there's got to be an underlying motive and it can't be a good one for you.
Yes.
So you have to be careful.
And there's also an old saying, I don't know if it still applies, but if it's too good to be true, it usually isn't.
Or if it's too easy,
right,
then there's probably, a reason that's not good. That's not going to benefit you.
Just think about things before you go whole hog onto something, especially if it's concerning a lot of money, and that you have to.
Oh yeah, with money. Do what makes sense, because
Right.
yeah. And a lot of seniors get scammed. They get these emails, or they get on the dating sites, and these men
Oh
will
yeah,
get them to
sure.
send them money. And
Mhm.
I'm like,
Mhm.
think this through, lady. I know you're sad and lonely, but come on. This
Or like
is
that one
not.
that I put on Facebook about Keanu Reeves, like supposedly he was emailing people, like this one woman, she thought it was him, and he was, so, and I was like, she thought he was giving her money, so then she gave him money. It's just like a whole big mess. I'm like, what are people falling for these really
I know.
stupid things?
Well,
on
and then
Facebook?
there's some men online, they'll like the girl sends pictures, and they're young, pretty pictures, and it's really someone else. And then she starts wanting money. And so he's depleted his savings, giving
Oh
her
yeah,
this
that's true.
girl that
That's
he's never
true.
even met money. And so, yeah, it's sad, but you have to think about that. What makes sense?
It's like, I was going to point out the N14M. Is that how you pronounce that called? The NX1.
Nexium. Yeah.
But it looks like it's N14, like it's the Roman numerals,
Yeah.
X, whatever. But they started, was it them that started recruiting through the internet? No, it was, no, it was Heaven's Gate. Heaven's Gate was the one that started really. Do you remember that cult, Heaven's Gate?
I know the name, but what was the story with that one?
That happened in the late 90s. It was 39 people, mass suicide. The Marshall.
Was that the Jim Jones one?
No, Jim Jones was back in the 70s or so. Yeah. No, this one was Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles, but they kept preaching that the end times are near, and the spacecraft would come and get them and take them away. But they recruited heavily through the internet. They were the first ones to do that. But I didn't really remember. I just remember that Heaven's Gate, but I didn't remember what happened. But I guess,
yeah, I remember hearing about that one too. The Jim Jones one, you've heard about it through the years. So I got it mixed up because I don't know. I don't remember. I was a kid.
Yeah, Jim Jones, I guess he preached a lot of like racial equality stuff. So that's why a lot of African Americans got involved with him. But I just thought that was so funny that he was the one. That's what they get from don't drink. They drank
Don't drink the Kool-Aid. What's the one that they all had tennis shoes on or something? They had certain tennis shoes because when they died, they were, maybe that's the Heaven's Gate one, because something about when they died, they were going to go, I don't know.
They needed tennis shoes for their space.
Just like, look what they do in the Middle East with the ones that kill themselves. What's it called? Jihad.
Oh,
and they're promised 7 virgins in heaven. That's a cult thing. That's not religion.
Sure.
That's a cult.
Definitely.
Making full out lies, manipulating these people into
true.
believing that that's going to happen.
It's an offshoot of
you can't prove them wrong.
Right.
Because nobody knows. So, it's like, you can make anything up and tell people, I could start saying, God talked to me. I know God. I know, and start telling people and make something up. This is proof. God did this to me or whatever, and start a whole cult. Okay. And there would be people, as silly as it would seem, there would be people that would fall for it and believe it.
Right. Sure. There's no lack of strange behavior and weird groups.
It's just funny how our minds are also different, and what we want out of life and what we are capable of doing, good and bad.
Sure.
There's so many selfless, wonderful people in this world, and then such evil.
It's true.
I mean, it goes from one to another. On a different topic real quick, have you been following the Gabby Petito missing story? And Brian Landry? So there's this young couple from Florida, went on a cross-country trip in a van. She was blogging it, and all of a sudden the video stopped. She stopped posting and contacting her family. And 10 days later, the boyfriend was in Florida with the van without her. And in Utah, so somewhere along the way, they had a big fight. Somebody called the police. They were fighting physically, and somebody called the police. And she was found guilty. They didn't charge her, but she was the one that was the aggressor. So you have to wonder, and I'm surmising and just guessing because I don't want to falsely accuse anyone of anything, but it kind of looks like if he came back without her and won't talk to the police, like he's making himself look guilty. I'm sorry. The natural conclusion is they probably had a domestic fight. Maybe he was emotionally abusive because she seemed so out of whack that he maybe had been emotionally abusing her for years, and it escalated physically, and she's smaller. She's going to end up the one that's hurt badly. And he just makes himself look guilty. It looks like he killed her and left her, wherever. I guess in Wyoming is where they were last. So
that's so sad.
Anyway,
it's like,
yeah,
that's
but
terrible.
Interesting how one person can control another person.
Sure.
How somebody can,
especially with domestic relation, between a man and a woman, or, a love relationship of some sort, because that's what they always say, that police never want to get involved with domestic fights because people just are, Yeah.
It's well, because there's so much passion involved. I don't know. I just can't see myself staying in a situation like that. I've been in a couple situations where it got volatile, and I'm like, bye.
Right. Exactly.
I don't care. I really, really love you, but I'm not staying in this.
Right.
I'm just
not until you take those anger management courses.
Yeah. I lose because I don't know. But
yeah, yourself, because you're strong and you have self-worth.
Yeah. Well, I have my self-worth is like, I'm not going to stay with someone that is even, emotionally abusive. I remember one boyfriend, the one that was emotionally lazy.
Mm-hmm.
And he
wasn't such a great guy. No, I said he wasn't such a great guy.
You know who it was,
but I'm not saying anything.
I'll tell you later. But anyway, he let me down when my dog was dying, and I asked him to stay with me, and he didn't. And I would throw it in his face all the time when we'd fight. And I remember one time he said, "When are you going to get over that?" I've apologized a million times, and it just popped out of my mouth naturally. I hadn't thought about it before, but I said, "When you mean it." He never meant it, the apology. And so I was always sensitive to people's sincerity. So even though I wasn't necessarily a good judge of dangerous people, but I was sensitive to their sincerity and their behavior towards me. And so I ended up breaking up with him because I felt like I don't want to be with someone that would be that cold-hearted, that didn't even want to stay with me while my dog was dying. And then I knew his apologies. He never meant it. He just never meant it. So anyway, I hope that anybody that listens, share your experience with us below. We've all had, most of us, I guess, have been put in situations where we're around dangerous people or susceptible to questioning ourselves. To be honest, I left a job that I was in for 4 years that was very abusive. It was a very abusive situation. My superiors and the company allowed it. And I left, and I felt very damaged after it. I felt like I'd been in an abusive relationship. So, it can even be a boss, a situation with a boss or a coworker.
Sure.
So don't put yourself in a situation where you feel threatened or abused mentally in any way, where somebody's making you feel bad every day or uncomfortable.
And then also, coincidentally, those are the kind of people that are very susceptible. If you've been in an abusive relationship and you're damaged, then you're very susceptible to joining some kind of cult on the other hand too.
Yeah, that's why I joined that cult, Kimbra.
The cult of whatever.
But yeah, well, what happens also, if you're damaged, you hurt other people through your own damage. And I've done that. Through my lack of being empathy, present or whatever, in relationships because of my own damage, and then hurt the other person. So you want to heal yourself, heal your own damage so that you don't perpetuate it. And if you go on to have kids, then you're going to mess with their minds. And That's why I think as a society, we should embrace mental health more.
That's true. And they are starting to open up about that in a lot of
And
programs I'm
abuse,
seeing.
all kinds of abuse. They're starting to acknowledge, the damage that rape does,
Sure.
child pedophilia, those
Mm,
kind of things that, they've just swept all that under the rug for so long.
right.
It's good to see it finally starting to come out. So
Yes. Well, on that happy note,
yes,
we
my advice is don't join a cult.
right.
Read a book.
Right. Read a book, yeah, and just think about things. If it's too good to be true, probably is, like we said. So there you go.
Think if it doesn't make sense, like if it's not something a normal person would actually really do, and I mean, like, if somebody's doing things for you above and beyond what a normal person would do, then be suspicious of it. There's a motive there.
That's true. That's true.
It.
And like we were saying earlier, if they're telling you to, just break away from your friends and family, that's a big red flag right there.
Yeah. And that happens in abusive relationships of all kinds. So. Yeah. So share what you think. As usual, tell us what you think, or share your experiences and how you might have overcome it.
Have you ever been almost in a cult or in a cult? Yeah. That's we want to know.
Yep. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for being with us. Bye.
Bye.